I'm meteorologist Elise Dolinar. Since I moved to Lima, I've heard many people talk about how industry in the area splits storms as they move into the region and decided to do some investigating. I've talked with weather professionals from around the state and experts in the field of meteorology here at Ohio State in order to separate fact from fiction. If you're curious as to what they had to say, you'll want to tune into my series, Split and Miss, The Lima Effect, on July 29th through the 31st here on Your News Now.
Well, what's going on with the weather here in west central Ohio? There's been a lot of talk over the years of a weather phenomenon, but is it real? Meteorologist Elise Dolinar talked with locals and has their opinions in the first part of her series, Split and Miss, The Lima Effect.
If you're from the Lima area, I'm sure you've heard people talk about storms splitting and missing the area. Many are convinced the refinery and other facilities within the chemical complex are playing a role in deflecting storms. Because of all the talk, I was curious to see if there was any scientific facts to back up this claim or if it's simply folklore passed down over the years. I spoke with professionals in the field of meteorology at Ohio State University as well as Ohio University to get their scientific opinions, but I was also curious as to what individuals from the community had to say.
When the storms get here, they kind of split off, and I've heard it called the dome effect over the chemical plant and the refinery because of the heat going up in the air, that once the storm gets here, it splits. Whether there's really anything to it, I don't know, but it does happen.
A lot of people call it the refinery effect. And, you know, we make a joke out of that, but I'm starting to believe it. We may all be nuts, but that's what we do.
I was talking to a guy the other day, and he thinks it's a chemical plant. My personal opinion, I think that probably something does, but what it is, I don't know. But it does seem to split and go around Lima.
Others believe it's all coincidence or that something else is having an effect.
I don't think it's a myth, but I don't believe that there's any such effect. I mean, it just seems to be probably more coincidental that, you know, storms seem to go around us, but I don't think this area is any different than any other.
People think that the storms will split up once they hit Lima, and I don't think that has anything to do with industry in the area, but I do think it has more to do with the possibility that radar just may not be picking up those storms at a lower level because they're so far away from the station here. The way the radar beam works, it just can't see the bottom part of the storm, so it may appear to disappear.
Working in the media, we hear a lot of feedback from the community. As meteorologists, Kyle, Allison, and myself often see comments pop up on social media. We are the go-to people for weather information, and this question is one we are asked often.
One of the most common questions that I get when I do speaking engagements with schools or organizations or whatever is, why do these storms appear to split as they move over Lima?
Is the belief that the refinery and other facilities within the chemical complex are affecting local storms fact or fiction? To answer this question, I had to seek out the professionals. Join me in the next part of this series to find out what they had to say.
Well, yesterday we heard from Lima residents on what they thought of the weather phenomenon. But now meteorologist Elise Dolinar will give us a look at what the professionals had to say in the second part of Split and Miss, the Lima Effect.
Many in the area attribute the appearance of storms splitting and missing the Lima area to man-made objects such as the refinery and other facilities within the chemical complex. But are these really affecting the weather patterns here in west central Ohio? This question led me to Ohio State University and Dr. Jeffrey Rogers. Rogers says studies have shown that larger cities see impacts on precipitation and cloud cover because of large-scale industry. As for a relatively smaller city like Lima,
I don't think it should by itself have any impact on affecting storms that are moving in. They're being driven by very large-scale processes and a lot of energy that they've acquired from the underlying surface of the earth, and things like that are from the sun.
It's natural to look for causes, but some are just people's perceptions. Dr. Jay Hobgood, atmospheric sciences professor at OSU, says we tend to remember storms that look like they're headed for us, then shift direction.
We try to look for explanations that are closer to home, and the refineries there is probably, one of the bigger things nearby. And yet, on the scale of weather, it's still pretty tiny, so it's probably not likely having an effect on the storms that you're seeing.
Many cities, including Lima, claim storms split and move to avoid the city. However, most of these stories are just that, stories, urban legends and myths made up by locals over the years.
These stories sort of get started maybe because something happened that seems to fit that mold, the weather systems seem to avoid the city during droughts or something like that. And these kind of stories get fixed in people's minds. but the data generally doesn't support it. We might remember the 1 or 2 or 3 special cases where it seemed to work, but overall, over a long period of time, it kind of falls apart.
While weather professionals agree that the refinery and other facilities within the chemical complex are not having an impact on approaching storms, are there other factors causing storms to appear to split and move? Stay tuned for my next segment where I'll discuss some potential factors.
Well, in conclusion to the series Split and Miss, the Lima effect, we'll take a look at other potential factors that could be causing this weather phenomenon. Meteorologist Elise Dolinar has the details.
According to weather experts, the refinery and other facilities within the chemical complex in Lima are not impacting the weather patterns here in west central Ohio. But could there be other factors causing storms to appear to split and miss the area?
Weather professionals from Ohio State University and Ohio University offered their scientific opinion on the matter and cited some alternative reasons for why we might be seeing what we are seeing.
You do have the Bellefontaine Ridge, and that could possibly be deflecting the airflow. And that's important because thunderstorms tend to move along boundaries. Now, sometimes they're boundaries left behind by earlier thunderstorms. Other times, they will move around boundaries that are set up by, say, the flow off of Lake Erie or features on the landscape like the Bellefontaine Ridge.
The Bellefontaine Ridge is possibly helping to determine where those boundaries set up, but what about our distance from radar sites? Dr. Jana Hauser says Lima is approximately 150 kilometers from either of the nearest radar sites. What that means is at the lowest elevation angle, the radar beams are a little over 4,000 feet high.
You have this several thousand feet of difference between what you're observing at the ground and where the radar is actually physically located in space, where that beam of energy is physically located. So what that can actually do is that can actually cause some precipitation and some features in weather patterns to be missed by the radar.
Statistically speaking, there isn't a significant difference in the weather patterns in the Lima area from surrounding areas.
Lima gets about the same number of days of rainfall that you see in the surrounding stations, places like Findlay and Marion and so on, and also the same number of days with heavy rain that would sort of be associated with thunderstorms.
Many strongly believe that storms are splitting and missing the area because of the refinery and other facilities within the chemical complex. Through this series, we've learned that that's not the case. However, it doesn't mean that something else isn't affecting the weather patterns. Radar distance and the Bellefontaine Ridge are more likely having an effect on weather patterns here in the Lima area. Further research is needed to determine all the factors affecting our weather, but at least we can rule out one possibility. In studio, Elise Dolinar, your News Now.